It's no surprise that the Star Festival, and of course the amazing music that goes along with it, is one of my favorite places in Super Mario Galaxy. There's just something so welcoming about it, but also sad because it feels like you never get to go back here again. Once we beat the game 100% with both Mario and Luigi, we realized this wasn't true. But prior to that, the feeling still stuck with us. This was our grand launching point. The place where Mario moved into a territory that was no longer the flat ground we knew. There was sort of a magic to the feeling it left me with when Mario headed toward the cosmos and never looked back. And that's exactly why this place fascinated me so much. It was such a vast level that seemed to go on forever. And once we make our way halfway through it, everything pristine about this place shatters as chaos rains down from above. Now this change in scenery has caused people a lot of intrigue over the years, and it's typically been the one place I see popping up all over my comment section on any Mario Galaxy video I've made. And this is why. When the scene changes over, there are toads that don't make it out of this ordeal unscathed. Bowser begins firing his warships from above, assaulting the entire area. During the cutscene, Mario begins running frantically through the village, and we can see a few toads get zapped by electricity or some sort of energy that causes them to crystallize completely. When we exit the cutscene, we can even hear a toad nearby state that their buddy is trapped in that crystal thing. But there's nothing we can do to help them. We run to the castle to save Peach, and Mario gets caught up in the crossfire as the castle takes to the sky. With a burst of magic, Mario is flung out into the atmosphere, and our adventure begins. And we never go back to that starting area that is in ruin. The next time we get a chance to check it out, the game is finished 100%, and nothing about the accident remains. So today we're going on a little quest. A quest to save the frozen toads at the start of the game that no one has ever freed before. Because it's certainly not as simple as walking up to them and shattering their casing. It's actually a pretty complex process. So sit back and come with me on a journey across the vastness of space to save these little dudes that every player left behind. Do you remember playing games as a kid and thinking they looked absolutely mind-blowing? But now, those same games appear blurry if you play them on the original hardware. The crispness of the games went away as newer and better graphics came about, and our minds adjusted to the modern graphics of today. That's a problem I've had with going back to older games. Sure, emulation produces great results, but it's also error-prone and doesn't carry the same feeling. There's just something about the original console that can never be replaced. But there is a solution to this, and it's called the M Classic by Mercedes. The M Classic is the world's first and only HDMI plug-and-play graphics processor for nearly every platform. You can use it on older consoles, or even modern ones like the Nintendo Switch, to upscale and sharpen your output resolution to make your gaming experience better than it was before. Want to play some GameCube games on the native hardware, but enhance the quality to 1440p HD? The M Classic has you covered, when coupled with a standard composite to HDMI converter. And it will preserve the correct aspect ratio while repaying the existing low-res footage to a higher resolution with its upscaling algorithm. You can even use it on your Switch to make the image look sharper than it did before. All of this with no additional latency. Prior to using the M Classic, I actually used Mercedes' previous gaming product, the M Cable, to improve the look of my Switch gameplay for my YouTube videos. It worked great for movies and anime as well. And the M Classic is a new and improved version of that. With the M Classic's ease of use, coupled with 3 different settings for normal unenhanced output, enhanced 16:9 output, and enhanced retro output, it truly is a versatile product. So if you want to enhance your gaming experience with your newer consoles, or put a fresh coat of paint on the games you loved growing up, you can grab yourself an M Classic by clicking the link in the description below. If you hurry now, you can use my special code SwankyBox to get 15% off for the holidays and Black Friday. With that said, I want to thank Mercedes for sponsoring this video and supporting me as a creator. The Frozen Toads of the Star Festival. So there's something very important that needs to be said about this stage. This is the only level in the game where Luma is not with Mario at some point. Mario doesn't meet Rosalina and Luma until Gateway Galaxy, which is the tutorial level right before we come to the observatory for the first time. Without Luma, we don't have our spin ability yet, and without our spin, we're unable to free any toads at the Star Festival. This is why this whole ordeal is a tricky situation, because plenty of players have wanted to free these toads and see what they have to say. Unfortunately, the only way to break a crystal in the game is to utilize Mario's spin. The ground pound doesn't work at all, and trying to do so will actually make Mario skip off the crystal and ground pound twice. Shooting the crystal with star bits doesn't help us any either. So we're stuck in a situation where we want to do something, but we don't have the ability to do so. The solution for this isn't exactly easy either. Giving Mario a power-up like a fire flower, which could potentially break the crystals, doesn't exactly work because we can't spin to actually launch a fireball. No spinning also means no flying hack that I typically use, because flying is initiated by spinning in the air. And granting Mario the ability to spin isn't something that's easy to do because it's normally bestowed upon him during a cutscene event through Rosalina. So for the time being, we're actually going to try to do a workaround before actually tackling the more complex way of reaching these toads. Because even though there are tons of toads frozen down here, there's also tons of toads running around and dancing that we never get to interact with. Some of these toads end up getting caught inside the crystals once the cutscene takes place. So let's try reaching them first before attempting the others. Despite not having the ability to fly, we can still enable a moon jump here. For those who watch my gameplay channel Swanky Zone, you'll know I dabbled around this area with the moonjump code quite a bit. There's actually a lot of neat things here too. For starters, we can actually travel back to the path that Mario runs on during the opening cutscene to the game. Only the path around it has collision though, and everything else around it makes Mario fall to his death. All the surrounding geometry to the level as a whole lacks collision too. You'll fall through the sides of the level, the water, the warships, etc. When the scene change does happen and the attack begins, we can use the moon jump to travel over the fallen tower that blocks our path. Doing so lets us get back to the starting area where we can talk to the toads here. And they don't have any updated dialogue. It's actually pretty funny how oblivious they are to the destruction that's going on. Toad, this is my favorite view too. Nothing beats it. So reaching the other side of the level without triggering the cutscene is actually a pain even with a moon jump. The problem with our moon jump code, when only affected by universal top-down gravity, is that our momentum slows to a crawl once our jump has been hyperextended. Mario starts out with tons of forward momentum, but all this momentum is converted into falling momentum the longer we fall. So basically, we inch forward super slowly and we fall like an anvil. So it takes a good 5 minutes or so of just moon jumping to get to the castle area because of the distance. Once we are over there, the area is under attack, but no warships are present. The cheerful Star Festival music still plays too. But unfortunately, we run into another problem here. Initially, when tackling this area, I was under the impression that the loading zone for the cutscene only tripped near the front of the downtown area. However, it's actually the entire area of the town and beyond it by quite a bit. So if we approach the town from the back, the cutscene still starts, even if we moon jump into the side fountain area. All of this is still contained in the cutscene range, so even a backdoor method doesn't allow us to interact with any of the toads before they get frozen. I'm not going to give up that easily though. Trying to reach these toads in an unaltered game state was ideal, but if we can't do that, then we're going to teleport all the toads to the start of the level. We'll throw Peach in too, just for the fun of it. With this in place, we can now see all the toads who are spinning and sitting down in the area. And interesting enough, they all have clone dialogue. Most of the ones we can never talk to say the same things that the talkable toads do. The game developers never bothered changing these things out because it's typically impossible to access these toads. But there's something we have to understand about this whole area though. Even though these toads look like the ones that are frozen in crystals, they actually aren't. And beyond that, there's plenty of toads not in the town area who are frozen as well. When the cutscene takes place, one set of objects and assets unloads and another one loads in. Think of it as like a giant switch that is pulled that can only be pointing to one set of 3D assets at a time. With that said though, who are these toads who are still stuck in the crystals? If we know for a fact that the toads from this area actually unload, then what is the story with these other toads? We still don't have a method to free them either. At this point, I started to brainstorm some ideas about how this could be done within this stage. And really, there are only two ways this could possibly be done. Both involve Mario getting the spin ability. But there are two different approaches to this. Either we bring Rosalina here to the Star Festival, or we reprogram a launch star in the game to send us back to the beginning of the game. Neither of these are really easy though, and bring about a lot of problems. I was able to get Rosalina to load in just fine into the Star Festival at the start, but talking to her was a different story. This caused the game to crash because she's not the only object we need here. And not only that, but I made some other mistakes as well. I reached out to CaptainByte, who is pretty savvy with editing the game, but he ran into some issues as well. He did discover something neat though. What's interesting is that we never actually talked to the Rosalina that is at Gateway Galaxy. When we approach her, a cutscene starts, and we're given the spin ability. She then disappears in the cutscene. Because of this, you can't actually approach her. But if you do talk to her, she speaks to you in Japanese, despite this being the English version of the game. Thankfully, CaptainByte speaks fluent Japanese, so he was able to help with it. When Rosalina was moved to the Star Festival without the cutscene, we could then talk to her and see what she actually says. And it translates roughly into the phrase, in front. And depending on the context, could mean the one standing before me, which is pretty interesting. Unfortunately, moving the other assets over to this level is a bust, because they're hard-coded to respond specifically to that level, and the files that are paired with it. So moving the cutscene over to grant us the ability didn't work. Booting up the other attempt, we run into a similar problem. Redirecting where the launch stars warp us to when it comes to transitioning maps falls under ASM editing, as in assembly editing, which is on the more difficult side of things. The idea was to replace the final Star Festival launch star that you get for 100% clearing the game with the one that takes you to the first scene of the game. After some tinkering, this started to work, but the level it loaded contained absolutely nothing. It was an empty void except for the map itself. So both of these had to be crossed off the list. It looks like, at the end of the day, since I don't have the capabilities to hardcode the spin ability to activate, we need to take the fight to another galaxy. So, after analyzing the crystals in the game a bit, I realized that all the crystals have a parameter set to them, so they can contain objects. Sometimes this is set to be star bits or other items, but there is a field that determines what color a toad will be if they're stuck inside of a crystal too. This is how all frozen toads in the game are set. With this in mind, it's time to go back over to the area that started this whole hunt in the first place. A while ago, I released a video about 3 desolate moons in Super Mario Galaxy. If you haven't watched that video, I recommend giving it a whirl sometime. But these moons have tons of crystals on them that I thought had toads in them at some point. It turns out they don't, but that's also what makes it the perfect place to recreate the setups from the Star Festival. So I hijacked some of the crystals on these plants and converted them to toad stasis chambers. I then flew to these inaccessible plants and visited my frozen comrades. But what I encountered was something I didn't expect at all. When I went to go free a toad, well, this happened. I shattered the crystal, and no toad was found. I heard Toad's giddy noise, but didn't see him anywhere. So I slowed down the game's engine and pulled the camera out. I thought Toad was being launched into space after the crystal was shattered, but I was dead wrong. The truth is, freeing the toads from these crystals actually killed the toads inside. They aren't launched anywhere. They shatter to pieces, and those pieces are sent flying. Every toad I did this to ceased to exist upon impact of Mario's deadly spin. So those Star Festival toads we wanted to free, even if we did get the spin ability somehow, we wouldn't save them. We would destroy them completely, which makes the story of this toad worrying about his buddy that much more tragic, as there is no saving him from this situation. But let's talk about what's happening here, because some of you may be thinking, but Swanky, you can free trapped toads in Space Junk Galaxy and they don't die. What gives? And you're absolutely right. But that's because those toads are different. If we take a look at Space Junk Galaxy, you'll see that there are crystals with toads placed inside of them. But these toads are actually 2 separate objects. When Mario shatters a crystal, the toad inside the crystal actually gets erased from existence. But this then triggers the other object, which is the similar colored toad that is stored in the same location, to jump upwards and start their animation. It's a 2-step process. But the thing is, because the developers knew Mario would never spin at the first iteration of the Star Festival, they never bothered to finish the cycle. So when the crystals shatter there, those toads are gone for good. The second part of the process doesn't exist, and the follow-up objects were never put into place. So our quest to save those toads at the beginning of the game, the request everyone has been asking for quite a while now, doesn't really have a happy ending. All these toads died. So press F in the chat, fam. They're gone forever. But we'll always remember them. So, it's been about 2 months since I originally tackled this video, and while getting the assets to make the thumbnail, I sort of thought of something that I should have tried before. So back when I gave the Fire Flower to Mario, which couldn't be utilized because he couldn't spin, I wasn't thinking that the invincibility star in the game is constantly doing damage when it touches things. Generally when the star comes out, I'm just used to running into enemies, but I never thought to run into crystals. So I took the star and gave it to Mario in the Star Festival, and with this invincibility, I proved the concept that the toads do indeed die when these crystals are broken. By touching them with the invincibility star, it acts as if they're getting hit by a spin attack, and they break open, and the toads are gone. They shatter into tiny pieces. So yeah, we finally got there, despite this being 2 months later. As I was rendering this video, as I was making the thumbnail, I decided to try this on a whim, and this is the update for that. So yeah, freeing the toads actually kills the toads, regardless of what you do. And with that, thanks for watching, guys and gals, despite how grim that turned out. And until my next video, cheers.